Thank you so much. It's really an honor to be here and to lead this session on knowledge economies and global trade. So, Excellencies, distinguished guests, I have much to say, so allow me to go straight to the point. We stand at an inflection point in global trade. The rules of competitiveness are being rewritten. The geography of production is shifting. And knowledge, not just natural resources, capital levels, or labor, have become the primary currency of economic power. I want to make two arguments today. First, about what is fundamentally changing in global trade. Second, about the role knowledge market must play in this changing landscape. I begin with the changes in global trade. Global trade hit a record $33 trillion in 2024. This was 3.7% higher than in 2023. And despite all the unprecedented tensions we have seen this year, trade continues to grow by around 5% year on year in current prices. Trade, so, has been very resilient. Tariff front-loading has been a factor, but it explained less than half of the expected growth in trade this year. According to our latest model, other more structural factors are at play too, and they have quite a lot to do with knowledge markets. One of them is services. Global services exports grew 9% last year, representing nearly 60% of the total trade expansion. Goods trade grew only 2%, while services grew 9%. And so the contribution of goods was much less. This is not a one-year anomaly. Between 2014 and 2024, global services exports grew more than 5% annually, more than double the percentage growth in goods. So in the whole decade, that has happened. Digitally deliverable services expanded even faster at 6.4% worldwide, 8.6% in developing countries. But the transformation goes deeper. Manufacturing itself is being reshaped by what we call servicification, the bundling of services into physical products. A car is no longer just metal and machinery. It is software, connectivity, data analysis, financing arrangements. The value increasingly lies not in the thing itself, but in the services wrapped around it. A second related by emerging factor is trade in artificial intelligence. AI-related goods represent just 15% of global trade, not much, but they account for 40% of trade growth this year. Knowledge-intensive sector are not the tomorrow of trade, they are the today of trade. A last factor is South-South trade. South-South trade is growing at 8% year on year. And if you take China out, because many times when I say this, everybody says, it's China. No. If you take China out, South-South trade has been growing at a 9% per year, even faster. So this showed that developing countries increasingly trade with each other, building resilience through regional integration, even as global uncertainties mount. And these are the factors for resilience, despite the trade uncertainty that have arisen with the new tariffs and the new geopolitical and geoeconomics interdependence. The resilience comes from services, from digital services, from AI, and from South-South trade. Pull all these factors together, and you have a common thread: technology. Digitalization has made services tradable at scale and speed that was impossible a generation ago. A graphic designer in Lagos can serve clients in London. A software developer in Bangalore can work for a startup in Silicon Valley. A filmmaker in Cairo can reach global audiences through streaming platforms. Advances in clean technology have also created entirely new value chains linking many countries in the South. Lithium from Bolivia, joining nickel from Indonesia to make a solar panel in China that will ultimately be installed in a small village in Nigeria. And all of this is being turbocharged by a boom of artificial intelligence. For developing countries, this creates both challenge and opportunity. Traditional industrialization pathways are being disrupted. Modern manufacturing is skill-intensive and capital-intensive. But services, including creative industries, offer alternative pathways to structural transformation that do not require only massive industrial manufacture or infrastructure, but they require connectivity, technology, and skills. Yet, barriers remain formidable. The digital divide is real. I said today in the morning, 2.6 billion people remain completely offline. Most of them women in developing countries. Only half of developing countries have basic cybersecurity legislation. Many lack data protection frameworks, and business e-commerce sales reached 27 trillion by 2022, yet most developing countries struggle to measure digital trade, let alone regulate it effectively. This brings me to my second point, the role of knowledge market in this changing landscape. The transformations reshaping global trade all point to the same conclusion. Knowledge is becoming the essential input for competitiveness. Whether in services, AI-enabled manufacturing, creative industries, or South-South value chains, it is knowledge that determines who can move into higher value activities and who can create the industries of the future. That is why the opportunities opening today are so significant. We are entering a world in which skills, data, creativity, research, and technological capability can accelerate development in ways that were simply not possible a generation ago. When knowledge becomes more mobile, so does opportunity. But this potential is not automatic. Knowledge markets do not evolve neutrally. They reflect the incentives, the governance, and the values that shape them. Knowledge itself is never fully neutral. Every data set reflects choices about what to measure and what to ignore. Every algorithm embodies the priorities and languages of its creator. Every research agenda privileges certain questions over others. Markets excel at spreading information quickly and efficiently, but markets do not simply distribute goods. They determine what gets produced in the first place. Research follows funding, funding follows perceived return. When returns concentrate in certain applications, entire domains of knowledge remain unexplored, not because they lack importance, but because they lack commercial prospects. And even when valuable knowledge is produced, access is uneven. Scientific publications sit behind costly paywalls. Data ecosystems are fragmented. Intellectual property systems remain difficult for many developing countries to navigate. Meanwhile, the institutional capacity to absorb and apply knowledge varies widely. Information alone does not generate impact. Capacity and institutions do. But these obstacles are not reasons for pessimism. They are reasons for action, and they are all solvable. This is why knowledge markets need both the invisible and the visible hand. Markets are humanity's more powerful tool for spreading knowledge, but they need the visible hand of policy, institutions, and deliberate action towards development to ensure knowledge flows where it creates the greatest impact. To ensure we do not repeat the mistakes of the past. Take electricity, for example. We learned how to generate it. We started to know 200 years ago. And yet, still, 666 million people still live without access to energy. This time, we must do better. We must accelerate the spread of technology, close knowledge and skill gaps, and ensure that opportunities can flourish everywhere. The role of knowledge markets in this changing landscape must be to connect supply with demand, not just commercial demand, but development demand, to enable the creative industries flourishing in Lagos, Cairo, and Bangkok, to reach global markets, to ensure that breakthroughs in renewable energy or disease treatment flow to where they save the most lives, to support digital entrepreneurship in countries still building connectivity, to value local innovation alongside global expertise. And we heard today the CEO of the foundation saying this is to improve lives, and that has to be our goal. This has several practical imperatives, and I will very quickly go through the agenda. Investing in digital infrastructure and connectivity as public goods, creating regulatory frameworks that enable innovation while protecting public interest, ensuring intellectual property systems balance innovation incentives with access to knowledge, building data governance frameworks that protect privacy while enabling the data flows that power digital trade. UNCTAD is very involved in this because we have been given the mandate to have the working group on data governance and supporting technology transfer on mutually agreed terms. And it also means ensuring the inclusion of developing countries in setting global rules for AI governance, data flows, and digital trade. Excellencies, for more than 60 years, UNCTAD has helped countries navigate transitions in the global economy. Today, our work on digital economy, statistics, e-commerce readiness, digital trade policy, creative economies have become central to our mandate. In our UNCTAD 16 conference last month in Geneva, member states endorsed expanded responsibilities for this agenda, precisely because the opportunities are so great. The task before us is to manage this transition with clarity and purpose. Knowledge economies do not emerge from technology alone. They emerge from institutions that translate ideas into productivity, from policies that lower barriers to participation, and from cooperation that allows countries to learn from one another. The next decade will not be defined by who has the most technology, but by who makes the most of it. Knowledge markets will be integral to that. UNCTAD will continue to support this transition with evidence, technical assistance, platforms for cooperation, and consensus building. Together, we can ensure that the rise of knowledge economies expands, not narrows, the space for sustainable development for all. I thank you.